Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for joining this live stream. In this live chat, I'd like to talk about how in Muslim nations at least, and particularly the more devout areas, people with the most hideous physical deformities or mentally handicapped or mentally intellectually challenged, in those societies, those people, you wonder how they're so numerous or why they're so numerous, and why, for example, maybe not euthanized at a young age, or at birth, or pregnancies terminated, or something like that, or how they don't end up dying through just natural causes. But the reality is, in those societies, such people, whether it be, again, intellectually challenged or physical deformity, they're under the direct protection of Allah. And this is a very serious business in these communities, particularly among the devout. So if you harm them or act against them in any way, then you are cursed by Allah for all time. So it's really, they can't do anything, and so the communities tend to support such people. But given that inbreeding, brothers and sisters copulating and procreating, and first cousins, and these sort of thing, there are a lot of these, a disproportionate number of these deformities, but nothing can be done about it because of this direct protection of Allah. So I didn't know this until I was in a Muslim nation one time, and I had to cross through, or I didn't have the option. The traffic was clogged, and it was going to take forever for the taxi. I was running late for an appointment, so I could cut through an area, a park, or what I thought was a park on the map anyway, next to a river. Turns out it was a shanty town that's was being put together for people with handicaps, because there's special days in the calendar each year and every so often where such handicapped people can come to the city, and they've got their minders and helpers and that sort of stuff, and they can beg for money on the streets at things like at traffic lights or passers-by and so on. So I took a shortcut through, and I suddenly sort of looked, and I thought, was I seeing things? So now, if you've just had something to eat, and you see some of the deformities that are utterly incredible, I couldn't even conceive of such deformities in my wildest imagination, then you'd have trouble keeping your food down. That's the level of shock value that it has, seeing people like this. And you can't believe that these sort of deformities would exist, or that people could still be alive. Now, that was my first thing, and another, or some time later, I wasn't aware that the festival, or the letting handicapped people come into the downtown area of the city, the CBD, to beg, was there. So I've met some business people, and we're driving along. And of course, they're local, so they're not surprised by this. And somehow, a guy who appeared to have no spine, from what I could see, and where his elbow came straight out of his shoulder on both sides, so deformity there, and I won't go into the detail, because even thinking about it or bringing the memory back's enough. But he somehow managed to launch himself onto the bonnet of this four-wheel drive, as it was, and with the hideous facial deformities as well, put his hand over the windscreen, and with the other hand was able to grab the money that one of the guys put through the window, and then somehow he sort of slid back down onto the road, and somehow, I don't know how, he managed to move onto the pavement. And there were people with those sorts of deformities all around. So every time we stopped in the traffic or traffic lights or anything like that, another one of these incredibly deformed people would come along, and there seemed to be, certainly from what I could see, thousands of them all about, but that's it. So I sort of inquired, and probably in a state of shock, that I think that the people would have noticed. would have noticed. Again, they're local, so they're not surprised by it, and probably thought I was a bit of a heathen not fully understanding this, but because you can imagine the tourist brochures don't promote this side of the country. So so they told me about this under the direct protection of Allah thing. So we can't hurt them or harm them. We even if we don't give them money when they come in, Allah would frown upon that, and so that's why we do it. So that gives you some idea of where this thing comes from and how it comes about. But now it's an issue in the West that people are being, Muslims being brought into the West, and they're allowed, and I have no idea why, but they're allowed again where people can procreate with their immediate relatives, and of course there's a much higher ratio of handicapped people amongst the Muslim population because of this, and there appears to be no effort to stop it. But if you can't work out why there isn't anything done about it, that's it. These people are almost the holiest of the holy, and they are directly protected by Allah. And if I can draw, say, an illustration of, say, the high point of the Catholic Church and its power. Now, in Europe, there were no such things as police forces and whatnot, 500-600 years ago. And travelling along certain roads in certain areas, you had to have a bunch of heavies to protect you, or a military retinue of some sort. Otherwise, the robbers, some of whom were quite numerous and well kitted out, would simply either kill you or take your money, or both. So, however, if the Catholic Church wanted, say, somebody to come from, for example, say, I don't know, northern France, to come to Rome, then they would send one guy on a horse, and he would hold the papal banner up and would go along, and the person that they wanted, or the people, would accompany them. And such was the power of the church that some probably did, but typically that was one of the safest ways to travel. Nobody would touch the papal legate, and nobody would touch the people that were with them, because they were under the direct protection of God. And if you interfered with them or killed them or robbed them or anything like that, then you would be damned to hell, and your soul would be tormented for all eternity. So that's sort of an approximate parallel, if you will, of that. But that should give you an idea of it at least. But I'd like to see your comments below, and thank you for listening. You've been with Tacitus today.